Kai Def Skywalker says, Grant Lowell, what is it you like about Jimmie Ward's game that you didn't realize before? I could start off.
You could start off.
First of all, he's a hell of a tackler. I don't think I've ever seen him miss a tackle ever. So that's good. And another guy who fought to come back and play in that last game, even though he had a concussion, didn't need to play in that last game. I respect that. And then what Robert Saleh keeps saying is like, look, I put him in man-to-man coverage against tight ends. Quarterbacks don't throw to him. He's not going to get a lot of interceptions because people stay away from him. It's a good point. It's a really good point. So he's not great at covering wide receivers, but he really can cover tight ends. And when he does, people don't throw at him. So, yeah, Jimmy, you're underappreciated. I didn't see it before. Good for you.
I would add that we know a guy who knows Jimmie Ward very well.
Yes.
And according to our friend, he's one hell of a good guy.
He is one hell of a good guy. And I know him pretty well, too. I've talked to him in the locker room a lot of times, and he's the most normal first-round pick I've ever met. He's extremely normal. Really like him.
And again, normal for viewers is the highest praise because so many professional athletes are really not what you'd call normal.
No. Like for example, Richard Sherman is fun to interview, but not normal. He is very good at doing interviews, but he's talking about himself or a topic that you want to talk about. Jimmie Ward is good at doing interviews too, but he's happy to have a conversation with you at his locker, which is rare. I mean, most 25 to 30-year-old millionaire athletes aren't really that interested in sports writers. And so if you ask them a question, they won't respond by asking you a question. He does. Always has.
Steve Young did too. I want to come back to Richard Sherman because I don't want you to think that Iggy means he has any pathology by saying he's not normal. It means that he's typical, which self-involved, egocentric, quite happy to talk about himself, but doesn't exhibit much interest in a sports writer, because that's only how we know them as sports writers. It doesn't exhibit much interest in them as a human being, whereas Steve Young always did. Brent Jones.
Yes.
Dwight Clark.
Yes. George Kittle. George Kittle.
George Kittle. Right. George Kittle. So, so George Kittle, in that regard, we mean by normal, we don't mean the others have a pathology. And I'll add one other thing that is quite poignant. Once they retire, they grow out of that.
Yes.
I have seen it so often with guys I thought were such egomaniacs. And then you meet them in their 40s and they're just like you. They've come down in life and they're like the rest of us.
One guy who didn't know, Jim Harbaugh. He carried that ego right over to coaching, and it worked for him for a while.
Yes,
it did.
Yes,
and
Iggy, I'll tell you one very good example of Jerry Rice.
Oh my God! Oh my God! He still has it too.
Ego.
He's nicer now, but he's still in great shape. If he goes to practice, he still wants to participate. He still thinks he could play. I love that about Jerry Rice. I love that.
But when you talk to him, wouldn't you say he's normal?
Yeah, he'll ask, "Hey, how you doing?
How you doing? Well, you know what?" And when he was a player, it wouldn't have entered his mind.
Right.
So he's an example of the evolution, the normal, natural evolution I'm talking about.
It's maybe certain players is just a little bit of arrested development because they were such successes at such a young age. They didn't really they didn't understand that there was more developing to do, and they do it after
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And Iggy, when they're playing, developing might not be helpful.
Right.
They have to be single-minded.
You got to be single-minded. You got to have a huge ego. You have to have no self-doubt.
Exactly.
All that perspective can come in your 30s and 40s.
Right. And so it comes crashing, whereas we got it gradually.
Right.
It comes crashing down on them, but you end up in the same place.
Right. Because from their perspective, they were probably, treated as God's gift to the world from about 14, 15, 16 on. It's hard to really grow when you're being treated like that.
Yes.
Everything. All your reinforcement is you really are the most important person ever. You really are. So you believe it.
Iggy, I believe that movie stars are probably that way too. I don't know movie stars.
Probably. And it probably forever because they can be movie stars for a long time.
Right.
I
remember one time when I was a young man, I was a film critic before I was a sports writer. So I was in my 20s and I interviewed this actor, director named Richard Benjamin. You probably haven't heard of him.
No.
But it was a big deal. And
okay, keep going.
Okay. So we were in a restaurant and I was interviewing him, but the food didn't come fast enough. We were in a fancy San Francisco restaurant, and you know how you might say, "Excuse me," to the wait person.
Mhm.
Is our food going to be here? He just sat there. There was no wait person near us, and he just yelled, "Food!" I just thought, holy mackerel! If I had done that, my father would have backhanded me across the restaurant.
Food. Okay, other great restaurant stories. 2 years ago, we went to Brooklyn and ate at what's it called?
You mean the pizza place?
No, the steakhouse. The steakhouse in Brooklyn.
Oh, Luger.
Peter Luger. Peter Luger. Okay,
Peter
you guys
Luger.
have probably heard of Peter Luger. It's the most famous steakhouse in New York. You got to call up a month or two in advance to get a table. We did. We got there, and everyone is dressed really nice. It's a really nice restaurant. They're holding one table. It's like the best table. It's for about 8 people, and in walks a party that we're pretty certain is the mob. We're pretty certain it's mob guy.
I mean, we couldn't prove it.
We couldn't prove it, but here's the markers. They come in t-shirts. No respect for any type of. First of all, the restaurant is reserving the best table for them. They don't come in dressed nice. They come in with t-shirts, and when they arrive, the maitre d' or whoever kisses them all on the cheek and gives them a huge hug like they're his best friend. So I'm like, oh yeah, definitely mob. So I'm so interested. I'm watching the whole time. One of the guys, whenever he's done drinking anything, he holds up his glass, just as this, and they come by and give him whatever. I was like, I don't think if I did that, it would work. I don't think it would work, even though I'm dressed way nicer than this guy. So that was a funny experience. The
Iggy, do you remember what the waiter was doing before they came?
Yeah. So they didn't get there, and the waiter, I noticed him. He was standing. He was like, he's probably 70 years old. He was standing at the window, looking out the window, holding himself, kind of leaning over, and you was thinking like, geez, he's really not looking forward to something. He's really taking a long sigh and like, God, I got to do it again tonight. And I was thinking, like, man, you got the best job. You work at the best steakhouse, and what are you dreading? Oh, got it. Dreading this guy.
He was just staring out the window for a long time.
Yeah, it's that night. They're coming. Well, this is going to be a dehumanizing experience. And I do remember also that one of the Goombas who was there, his date was looking through his phone and saw that he was talking to some other woman, and she left. And when we left, she was like, yeah. And he was like trying to be like, what are you going to do? It's so funny. Man, I love that.
Okay. You use the word Goomba, which means...
Well, I don't know that they were Italian. I don't think they
Here's
were.
the thing.
I don't think they were Italian.
They may or may not have been Italian, but you need to know that Iggy's mother is of Italian heritage.
Yes.
And Iggy
I can say
is
that.
partly Italian.
Yes.
His grandmother's maiden name was DiMarco. DiMarco. There is DiMarco blood in Iggy, and he had an uncle Oscar who made his own tomato paste and made his own pasta, and Iggy grew up with that.
Yes, true.
And has been to Italy, where he was driving bumper cars. He was 6 years old, and he knocked into a little girl, which we learned in Cohn and Lowell you could do. Mm-hmm. She jumped out of her car, banged on his hood, and goes, "Accidente!"
It was so funny. It was the funniest thing. Yeah.
Right, let's move on.
The Mech says Lowell's grade A+. He again donated 2,500 Chilean pesos, and he says it's about 350. So don't give me too much credit. Well, thank you.
The Mech, thank you so much. Thank you.
You guys are so generous, man. I like the stories of bad behaviors we've seen at restaurants. Kevin Wang says, "Do you have a Discord, bruh?" No, I don't. I'm almost 33 years old. I don't even know what Discord is, but I'll try to figure out what it is. Maybe I might have it, actually. I'll get back to you on that. Grant, have you had time to think of a book recommendations authors from both of you? I would recommend anything by Elmore Leonard. You were just reading his Western short stories from the 50s. In the 60s.
Yeah. But also his Western novel, Hombre, which they made into a movie, might be his best. And Get Shorty he's just wonderful.
Yeah, but Hombre's like 100 pages, right?
At 150 pages, very short.
You guys could read it today if you're looking for a short book to read. Hombre by Elmore Leonard. His westerns are fantastic. So that's cool. Grant, that was an awesome steakhouse story, but how was the steak? I need to know. The best part about that place is the menu is steak for one, steak for two, steak for three, and then that's pretty much it. They'll have like sides and stuff. My wife doesn't eat beef, so she got the lamb chops, which were amazing. But basically, it's do you want steak for one, steak for two, steak for three?
And how do you want it done?
And how do you want it done? It's so good. It's so good. I highly recommend it.
And also, it's in Brooklyn. It's not Manhattan,
right?
So they had a wine list, but it wasn't like what you get in California. So the guy, he just opened the wine and brought it over, and I said, we're used to seeing that, opening it at the table. And he was a waiter in Brooklyn. He goes, you know what? This isn't Manhattan. You don't like it? I'll get you something else. Remember he said that, Iggy?
That's true. That's true.
Brooklyn. You don't like it? I'll get you something else.
Yeah, it was cool. And that was the guy who was looking out the window the whole time, right? I think it was.
I don't remember. I can tell you that about a year ago in the New York Times, somebody really put down Peter Luger. Really put it down. And it was very controversial. But Swasti, Iggy, and I had eaten there recently, and I thought it was fabulous. And what a scene. What a scene.
Oh, I was so glad that we got to see that little scene. James says, Grant's report card, A-. You produced excellent quality work all year, but I'm docking you for your consistent tardiness this semester. Be on time in the future. Couldn't hoit. Right. Fair enough.
Couldn't hoit.
Couldn't hoit. Kevin Wang says, you want to work at Fox or ESPN? I want to work at whoever's willing to pay me $6 million a year. I think that would be nice. But you know what? I like my job right now. YouTube is the great place to work because they don't have a boss. Plus the SI.
You work primarily for SI.
For SI, both places, they let me do my thing. I love it. I love it.
I love SI, and I love how they treat you, how they present you, and the opportunities they've given you.
Me too. Changed my life. They changed my life.
Yeah.
Seriously. Dad, I think it's time for me to give you a call.
Okay. I want to tell you, hold on. This is our last regular season. Iggy, I love doing this with you.
I love doing it too. We've been working together for about 10 years, and you retired 3 years ago, but it felt like working with you again this year. And in that sense, it felt like my favorite season ever.
I feel that way too. And I love you, Iggy.
I love you too, Dad.